Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by Brian Henry and Pete Mohan. And just last night, Marquette lost 93-81 in Philadelphia in one of the most misleading final scores to ever exist. Marquette lost.
Mike, what are you talking about? We battled and hung in there tough. Come on.
You know,
on the road, only a 12-point loss. That Marquette team's got a lot of fight in it.
This is a resemblance of a Blake Bortles stat line.
Yes, exactly.
Everyone's like, hey, Blake Bortles is a great fantasy football player. Look at, he brought him back at the end of the game and put up a lot of points. You know, it's like, get the hell out of here. Those garbage time baskets only.
Why don't we spend a half hour on this pod breaking down the last 3 minutes of basketball? Because that's probably about the only part that we can say positive things about.
As much as I would love to do that, there's so much more to talk about in the middle. And I think where this conversation, we can run through the ranks, and we're going to do our best not to single out any one individual player in a supremely negative way, although almost everybody on the team could use a little bit of that. But I think where this conversation starts and ends is with defense. Not only was our defensive intensity lacking throughout the game, we just weren't in position to make good defensive plays throughout the game. We put ourselves in the position such we have to rotate guys to defend the paint because our paint players can't do it themselves. That leaves Villanova's players wide open, and if they're not wide open, they can get a wide open shot off of one more pass, and we were carved up that way the entire game.
Pete Mohan, I'm interested what you think, because this is where I'm at. Mike, you say lack of energy or effort defensively. I don't think this is
from most people.
I just don't think this is a very good basketball team. I think we've reached the point where we are what they are, and Villanova did exactly what they were supposed to do against us. I'm curious what you think, Pete.
It was clear that we're running too simple of a defense, too simple of an offense, and for an experienced team like Villanova, when you go up against that, they can scout your tendencies in 2 seconds on video and install 1 or 2 plays to just devour our defense, and they just milk the clock, run the same play, get an easy basket, you know? None of their starters shot under 50%. Their worst shooter was Pascal, who was 3 for 7, and 65% overall is what we allowed. We didn't have a chance on defense against these guys. They were clearly a reigning national champion, and we're clearly a rebuilding squad.
Does that? I can't decide if I'm okay with it. Am I saddened by it? Am I upset by it? I think it's a combination of all three, where I think we all knew that's what was going to happen going in. There was a part of you saying, come on, like find that performance where you're at least able to come. I don't think anybody's expected us to win, but to at least walk out of.
Well, that whole DePaul only losing by 3 to them gave everyone hope.
Wojo said it after the game, and I think it's the most glaring charge to come from him. If you read his quotes or watched what he said, we didn't compete. We were non-competitive in that basketball game.
We lost every 50-50.
Non-competitive. I mean, that's the most glaring charge.
We were clearly non-competitive, but that comes back to what I just said at the beginning about effort. Competitiveness derives directly from effort.
That's true.
And look, no one expected us to win, including all three of us here and the other 2 bros who aren't on this pod. No one expected us to win. But if you're not getting any 50-50 balls, I just keep coming back to the defense. The rotations against Seton Hall and against Georgetown were better. We thought they were better because the team was improving. That may be the case, but Villanova is just on a completely different level. I just don't know what the answer is defensively. I don't think we're active enough. I think we're sluggish. That was certainly the case in the second half. It wasn't so much of an issue in the first half.
Well, our best help side defender is Sam Hauser, and he's a freshman and he's slow-footed, so that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, he is slow-footed. He's a good defender, but he is slow-footed.
Which is why he got dunked on, I believe, I think it was the second half. He had a nice rotation And I think it was Jenkins just went up and put one down over him.
I think that was Fisher that got dunked on, wasn't it?
Was it Fisher and I'm mixing it?
Yeah, so if you don't see him in the lineup next week, it's because he's on a poster.
Oh, that would be it, yeah. Interior defense for both of them left a lot to be desired. But a lot of it was not necessarily them just getting beat on block-to-block screens and post-ups. Villanova's ball movement is special. The ball gets around the perimeter, it hits the paint, it kicks back out. They're driving inside. They got more layups and dunks. I mean, your head was spinning. There's a reason they won the national title last year. You've said it. There's a reason they're going to have a really good chance to repeat for the first time since Florida did in our freshman and sophomore years of college, if I recall. They got a shot. They're good.
Maybe it's just me, but it seems to me like one of the things about Villanova is you can tell that they're invested in every possession. And I don't know if it's a concentration thing, maybe they're older and more experienced, or if it's a coaching thing, or maybe it's something they target in their recruiting, but they do a great job of their execution on every possession, offensively and defensively. And I feel like our team, we're so invested in three-point shots and getting hot and going on runs. And when you're a team that, you have to rely on those streaks of shooting and things like that, you're going to get devoured every time by a team that goes after you on every possession. When you're facing a team that's that disciplined like Villanova, Marquette doesn't have a chance.
Yep. And I agree. And I think you look at the Marquette side of the ball when, you talk about Villanova with senior leadership, and you're even getting leadership from guys like Jalen Brunson, who's a sophomore. But look at Marquette, and what do you see from our two seniors? Juwan Johnson ended up with 12 points, 4 of 11 from the field, I think.
Foul trouble,
right? Or 3 fouls in the first half, pretty early on in the first half. Several of those 12 points were steals and fast breaks, so not necessarily in the rhythm of the offense. And then your other senior, Luke Fisher. I mean, I don't know what to say about Luke Fisher. It didn't look to me like he wanted to play last night. There was no assertiveness. There was no aggressiveness. He was the tallest guy on the court by at least 2 inches, and he ended up with 4 fouls, 4 offensive rebounds, 0 defensive rebounds, and a couple bad sequences. It's inexplicable. I can't. It's baffling.
0 defensive rebounds in 2 consecutive basketball games for a 6'11" preseason all-league player. Explain that to me.
Should we just sit here in silence? Because I don't think anybody can explain that to you.
I said at the start of the year, he has to shoulder an unfair load due to there really isn't another big on the roster that can produce what Helt has, I think, exceeded our expectations, but Helt doesn't have the skill and ability to score 15 points and grab 7 or 8 boards. To grab 0 defensive rebounds and you're on the floor, now again, he only
2 weeks in a row.
Right, and he only played 20 minutes in this game because Wojo sat his ass for the final 12 plus minutes of the basketball game. Now,
I think we would honestly be better off if Fisher, Helt, and Hauser split those center minutes evenly.
You want to see Hauser run at the 5?
I mean, depending on who we're playing.
At least you have someone on offense rather than just a mannequin on both ends of the court.
Well, your rim protection is going to that's fair.
Fisher's performance against Seton Hall is inexplicable, but it's more explicable than what happened against
against Seton Hall, that Delgado just ate him alive.
Right.
I mean, there was no Delgado is a superior post player to Luke.
But when someone like Eric Pascal for Villanova, who's their second string, 5. He's 6'7", and he posterizes Luke, blocks Luke. Luke goes up soft to the rim for that dunk, which should have been an easy lay-in and an and one, and gets rejected. I mean, the effort's not there. It's simply those are plays that could easily be made with an ounce more effort.
I'm going to pivot our frustrations with Luke to a bigger picture look at the defense because
take it to the coach.
Well, I've said it. He's there. He's out there. He's got to play for rim protection. You can't get all that frustrated. Villanova shot 65% from the field yesterday. Yes, they did make 14 of 23 3-pointers. That's still 65% for the season. We're letting teams shoot 44, almost 45% from the floor, and there's a lot of beneficial soft cupcake games where that brought that percentage down. If I just sat here and broke it down by, or how have we done against teams that we're legitimately competing with in league and against in non-conference to try to get an at-large tournament bid, I imagine we've got to be giving up over 46, 47% to opponents. It's not going to do it. And again, another game where Marquette's offense puts 81 points on the board, granted a lot in garbage time, but just looking at it raw, 81 points on the board, and they didn't even give themselves a chance to win. The defense is it's baffling.
I think what you just laid out, Brian, perfectly explains that what we're doing on defense is not putting – look, we have athletes across this roster. Hanif Cheatham isn't a bad defender. Juwan Johnson isn't a bad defender. Sam Hauser, a little slow, yes, but he can put a body on people, not a bad defender. Marcus Howard, he's active, not a bad defender. Now, I didn't say anybody was a great defender, but these are not players who collectively together should be giving up what we are giving up. It's time to look at this scheme. It's time to look at what this coaching staff, the situations, the positions that they're putting these players in. I think what it rotates around is that I think our interior defense is soft enough where we feel like that's our weak spot, that's our soft underbelly, and we have to protect that as best we can. In rotations, that leaves us vulnerable out on the three-point line, and teams like Villanova just eat us alive.
I'm not one to defend Wojo, and trust me, that my frustrations are growing in other areas. But defensively, defense is effort. Defense is getting sideline to sideline and cutting the guy off in front of you and not letting him cross over and change directions and penetrate and get to the basket. Like, I look at the players. They've played basketball their whole lives. I'm not asking them to, be a top 20 defensive team in the country, but you got to be better than this. I can't hang this on the coaching staff and say this is totally scheme and practice. I don't think these guys are dumb. These guys all played high-level basketball. I think they're pulling their hair outs and are trying different defensive schemes. We've seen them throw zone. We've seen them defend the pick and roll differently throughout the season as we've gotten carved on that. The players just aren't doing it. And you know what? And this is something that deserves discussing probably at a different pod, but here we are in another season with having kids transfer out. We don't have a full complement of players with different skill sets that we can mix and match things on. We have 10 bodies that we can put out there right now. This is what we got. This is what they are. I can't kill Wojo and the coaching staff for this.
Just want to piggyback on what you're saying, Brian. A name that we haven't said all season is a guy that maybe we could be using right now with all these transfers, and that's Sakara Nim. He's a big body. He's a muscular guy, and we're redshirting him this year. And clearly, we could use his muscle on defense because we are just so soft. And hopefully he can be a contributor next season, and I hope to God he doesn't transfer because we need all the muscle we can get. But right now, we're really hurting for someone that wants to give effort and physicality on defense, and I think that we could be using Sakar right now.
Sakar coming in at 6'5", 205, I agree. He could be another body out there. I mean, I don't know how much he gives you on the offensive end, but you're right, on defense, we need something. We need something.
Do any of us sit here and think that defensively we're better with Tracy Carter or Sandy Cohen playing any minutes in any of these games? Probably not.
No, not probably. No.
No, but both of those guys have a little bit of length, and they were decent at getting in passing lanes, if nothing else.
I mean, I think Sandy was more of a liability on the defensive end. I think Tracy would have a bonehead play, and then he'd pick someone's pocket and push it down the court.
But he was a bit of a dog,
yeah.
on man-to-man D.
That was one of my favorite parts about him when he went at Villanova last year.
The point I'm making is, though, when you have defections like that, when you're frustrated with somebody that's out there who's not, I'm just going to take whoever you'd say, Howard had you pulling your hair out over 4 or 5 positions. It's you're subbing in Andrew Rousey, right? Like, you're going to get smaller and a little bit slower. So it's not like I can't go, you know what, Tracy's going back out there. He's our fastest guard. Just go out there and hound the ball. And they don't have that luxury. Like, we're down players again. This is the group that we have to put out on the floor every single night to give ourselves a chance to win. I mean, if anything, your indictment is this is our roster, and that's a bigger picture, discussion for another day. But this is what we got. This is what you're going to battle with. It's not good enough defensively. That's going to be the case all season, which, Mike, I don't think we're beating a team of this caliber. Are we beating Butler this year? Are we beating Xavier, Creighton? I don't want to say no, not a chance, but it sure doesn't feel encouraging after what we just watched.
I think that this team is clearly one that has a very moderate ceiling and, a somewhat high floor. They haven't had any bad losses this year, really.
Right.
I mean, they've had situationally bad losses where they've given up leads, but they're not losing to SIU Edwardsville.
Right.
But clearly they're not in the caliber of some of these upper echelon Big East teams. And if we get a win against any of Villanova, Creighton, or Butler, or Xavier even, we're punching above our level.
Yeah.
But we are still on pace for our Big East schedule anyway. We have a chance to get back on board with a win against Seton Hall on Wednesday. Splitting with Seton Hall is not a bad thing. If you asked us before the season what would happen against Villanova, we'd say probably lose both of them. It is what it is there, and all you can do is continue to play the teams in front of you.
As both of these fellows just alluded to, we're going to get into a little bit more. I want to walk line by line through the schedule, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how lucky we are to have Marcus Howard for a little bit. I think, and Sam Hauser had a good game too. It's a tough game to pull some positives from, but I think if there are, it's that we have two freshmen who are tough, Marcus Howard in particular. I saw Dan Fitzgerald, formerly of Marquette basketball, tweeted out that a 17-year-old, and I think he's almost 18, but a 17-year-old can't be the toughest player on the floor for you. Marcus Howard is a phenomenal player, huge cojones, excellent shot. He can get in the lane. He had a couple nice drives in the lane the other day, but we are very lucky to have him. And the positive is that if they stay around for long enough, that's something to build your team around.
For those of you playing Real Chili Pod Bingo at home, please check off Dan Fitzgerald off your board for that mention. To elaborate on your point regarding Marcus, Mike, I can't say enough good things. He is shooting 53 friggin' % from behind the arc this year for the season. 53. I mean, I think we all...
Did you see that shot, that three-pointer yesterday where it was like lined up perfectly with the camera and the net didn't move?
Yeah.
I thought he just totally airballed it. And I was like, what? Oh, it went in.
Pure.
Amazing.
It's so tough with... And again, he should be a senior in high school. I mean, it's really how many, and kids coming out of high school, always a knockdown, dead-eye shooter, and how often that translates to the collegiate level because they can't get their shot off. People are bigger. He can get his shot off. He can still shoot it effectively. He gets into the lane. He's shooting 50% from the floor for the season. Just having him in a collegiate strength and conditioning program where he's going to put muscle on and get bigger and quicker, I got to hand it to Wojo. And it's funny, as much as everybody will, recruiting rankings-wise, will say Henry Ellenson was his best get, there is no question in my mind Marcus Howard is the best and most important player that he has recruited because his ceiling could be – he could be here all 4 years, graduated age 2021, and go into the NBA as still a young major – now, it's a long ways down the road, but just the skill set right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've gotten a few texts saying Marcus could get looks at the next level if he continues on this trajectory. He's 5'11", and that's generous with the hair.
Old Len Elmore was salivating over him during the game.
Yeah, Len Elmore looks old. I haven't seen him in a while.
Len Elmore's been salivating since 2009. He hasn't stopped, so that's just his general disposition.
He's a leaning elm at this point.
Jeez. All right, let's anybody have any thoughts on Hanif Cheatham? I think Hanif continues to be good on defense, able to body people up, but his offensive, I think he had a couple nice drives the other day.
It's psychological, I think. He's just not in rhythm. We know that he has the skills and the ability. Right now, he's just not in a rhythm. I don't know if it's minutes or if it's the guys out there that he's playing with. Maybe he needs a pass-first point guard out there that, he's missing without Tracy.
Yeah. He's
just been a little off, and I'm not really concerned with it in the long term. I think that he'll put it together eventually, but he's just a little off.
Yeah, I agree he's off, and something that could have some influencing factor on it, I think only time will tell, is the extent to which he relied on Luke Fisher to at least being a presence down low and carving out a little bit of space. If that was something that Haney relied on consistently, I don't know how soon we get that back.
1 or 2 games is a blip on the radar. 3 games feels like something approaching a trend. Pardon me, a blackledge, if I can speak more correctly.
Oh, Mr. Red Milk himself.
Check that off your bingo cards as well, people.
Yeah.
That would be I'm concerned. I'm not running around with my hair on fire concerned, but I'm a few steps before that, where the fact that he has been a non-factor for us in three 3 consecutive games is concerning. Granted, we played the number 1 team in the country yesterday, but got to have more from him. He's our best penetrator. He's our best finisher. He hasn't looked like that the last 3 games.
Hey, Mike, I know you want to shout out to your boy, Caden Reinhardt, for hitting 5 out of 10 3-pointers.
Yeah, 50%. I'll take it.
Bombs away!
Captain Caden Reinhardt.
Oh, we're hysterical over here. All right.
I can't decide what I'm more frustrated about. The fact that we can't, defend anything, or the fact that Caton has given us, 2 I'm getting hot games, and we haven't done anything with it. We've got 2 L's from it. It's like, damn it, come on.
Well, let's so in the last few minutes we've got here, let's dive into the schedule and kind of walk through it. I want to see kind of what our take is on how we finish this conference season and what our record is going to be and what games we have to get if we want any outside shot of making the NCAA tournament. Making the NCAA tournament terrifies me because I think we'll have a repeat of what just happened. But let's walk through it. So if you look at the Ken Pomeroy rankings, Ken Pomeroy predicts us to finish 9-9 in conference. So up next, we've got a home game against Seton Hall. I think Seton Hall is a game that we'll win at home. I don't think Seton Hall plays on the road very well from what I have seen of them, and I look for a bounce-back win. And really, the next 2 games, I think we should get wins in both of them. Seton Hall is definitely a must-win for us, but I think we'll be able to follow up with a home win against DePaul after that.
Seton Hall, for me, I think that, they're one of those teams that are physical, as we saw in the last game against them, which we do have trouble with. With that said, I think that the crowd will have us back feeling a little more comfortable after being on the road for a couple games. And as you saw against Georgetown and throughout the rest of the season, we play really well at home, save for the Wisconsin game. I think that we definitely have a chance against Seton Hall. And like I said, we're on pace for our schedule right now. We haven't had any bad losses. You lose to Seton Hall away, that's fine if you split with them when you win at home. After Seton Hall, we have DePaul. So, that's obviously a must-win. If we lose to DePaul once, basically your chances at the tournament are over.
Brian, when you look at this schedule, kind of breaking it down, you look at kind of the games that, again, are the 50-50 games when we play Butler in Milwaukee or when we play Xavier in Milwaukee. Those are or Providence on the road, Creighton at home. Those are as close to 50-50 games as we've got left. I don't know how many of those we can pull off.
I was going to say, I think it's generous for you to call Creighton and Xavier 50-50 games right now. Maybe 30-70 games right now.
Yeah.
After what we just watched.
Well, I mean, look.
Who knows against St. John's even these days?
I think we said this on the very first pod. This team's not good enough to take anybody for granted.
No.
And that's not meant as a knock. It's just reality. All they can do is worry about Seton Hall. I know we're going to look at the schedule, but there's no guarantee you're going on the road and beating DePaul. I don't think there's a guarantee you're beating St. John's twice. Every game will be a fight for them.
Yep.
Every single one. And the second they take their foot off the gas, regardless of who it's against, they will get beat.
Yeah.
And that's
for me, the buoying factor for this team's record is their shooting percentage. You can't
check buoying off your bingo card.
Check
folks.
buoying. Actually, you have to take a shot for every time someone says buoying.
Which Bowie does he want to go with, though? Jamel Bowie? Sam Bowie?
Definitely Sam Bowie. Anyways, I think that our shooting percentage is what's going to buoy our record this year. Because you can't shoot 40% from 3, 41% from 3, and be the second best free throw shooting team in the nation and lose all your games. That's just, there's no math for that.
You can if you don't play defense, Pete.
I know.
If you give up 95 a night, that's how you do it.
Well, that's true. However, I don't know. I still remain pretty confident in the fact that the team's floor is somewhat high. I mean, we lost by 3 on the road at Seton Hall, and we got smoked by the number 1 team in the country. Surprised? No one. No one is surprised at that.
Looking back over the schedule, the only 2 games that we should have reasonably won were, as you just mentioned, on the road, a close one against Seton Hall, and a game we just totally let slip away in Pittsburgh. If you don't have those, we're a 3-loss team in January.
And the sky is sunshine and rainbows, and we're talking about what first-round site we're going to all be flying to for the start of the NCAA. No, I'm kidding. We wouldn't be doing that. Can I pose this question?
Pose away.
All right. For the sake of argument, they win Seton. They beat Seton Hall. They beat DePaul, both games at home. And I come back on this pod with you guys. What's changed? Has anything changed?
I just think that it proves that they take care of business. That's kind of what I've been saying all season long, is that they just take care of business in the games that they should, which is something for those of us who are fans of the Lions or whatever other team that craps the bed.
I don't know what you're talking about that. I sure as hell wouldn't do that.
Teams that crap the bed against bad teams and then, upset good teams. That is not this Marquette team.
Yeah.
This is a team that beats the teams that they're capable of beating and loses to the teams that they're not capable of beating. They are who we thought they were.
Check off Denny Green on your bingo card as well.
I foresee us beating Seton Hall and DePaul and going into that Butler game with a chance to flip the script on the season, because you're sitting at 3-2. If you can go on the road on 1 day's rest and go into Butler's house and win, then the feeling around this team is completely different. But you have to get to that point first. And if we lose to DePaul, I don't know if anyone's coming to any home games the rest of the season.
Deservedly so. And to answer your question, Brian, if we beat Seton Hall and DePaul in the next 2 games, what's changed? Nothing's changed except for the fact that when we have, a game with 3 minutes left and it's a tie game, or we're up by 1, or we're down by 1, we're not shitting the bed. That's what happened at Pittsburgh. That's what happened at Seton Hall. The chance was right there for us. This wasn't like we're getting blown out of the water. No one's expecting something to change significantly enough for that. 1 fewer turnover, 1 more made shot in either of those games would have been the difference. So it's not a sea change for us to only have 3 losses.
So after these Seton Hall and DePaul games, then it's Butler, Creighton, Villanova.
God help us!
That's 3 losses.
I mean, okay, so let's say we beat DePaul. I think we beat DePaul at home.
Yeah.
You guys agree?
Yes.
Peter, please point out the fact that Butler and Creighton are on the road.
Correct. Seton Hall at home, Nova at home, sandwiched around Butler and Creighton away.
Seton Hall is going to be a dogfight. I think they win it, but I think it's going to be it could very easily again be a 1-2 point game.
So let's say we win the DePaul game, okay? I think that we're pretty confident.
God, I hope so. God help this podcast.
I know I'm jinxing this. Everybody listening, please knock on wood for my sake.
God help this podcast if we lose to DePaul.
Between Seton Hall, Butler, Creighton, Villanova, what record would you see as a disappointment? Going 1-3 against those teams, I don't think would necessarily be a disappointment.
You said Seton Hall, DePaul, Butler, and Creighton?
No, I'm counting DePaul as a win. So for those 5 games, I guess 2-3.
God, Mohan's just delivering kisses of death left and right. Oh my God.
I'm the reverse jinx master.
All right, okay, that's fair.
So when we go 5-0 in this stretch, everyone's going to be, pouring frankincense and myrrh on my feet.
If we go 5-0 on this stretch, I will more than happy take my I'll take one of my dress shoes sitting to my right here. I will fill it with 2 beers and consume every last drop of it if they go for
I was hoping you'd say you were going to fill it with salami, lettuce, and tomato and eat your shoe like a sub.
Eat your shoe. That's what I was hoping too. Still waiting on that promise delivered.
I think I've promised to do that on a few other things, but it hasn't come through. Peter, to answer your question, I mean, I don't think there's any expectation they beat Butler, Creighton, or Villanova. I think we'll all be floored, stunned, and happy if they do. Maybe they can push one of them, but to go on the road at Hinkle and into, I think it's the Ford Center at Creighton, where that they sell out every single game and is loud and ridiculous. And, oh, by the way, they're pretty damn good. Nova at home, I don't think you can have any expectation they can win those 3.
I think going 1-4 in this next 5-game stretch would be a huge disappointment. 2-3 is about what I expect. I don't see any conceivable way we beat Butler on the road, Creighton on the road, or Villanova at home. I just don't, I try to live in a rational world, and there's not a rational world in the multiverse in which that exists. It's just not.
And clearly this is the toughest 3-game stretch of the season. I mean, it's not going to get any harder than that.
Right.
You're playing 2 ranked teams on the road and the number 1 or maybe former number 1 team at home. So
I would, looking ahead, I think that's definitely the toughest stretch. I think another tough stretch is Butler at home, Georgetown here in D.C., and then Xavier at home. I mean, a little bit easier, but nothing to turn your nose up at anyway.
Hey, if we can get one of these wins against Butler, Creighton, or Villanova, I think that, you're ahead of the game. But it all starts with Seton Hall and a known quantity in DePaul. If you take care of business there, you're in good shape.
I'm looking forward to the Seton Hall game purely based on the fact that we saw them obviously very recently. I think it was a fascinating game for Marquette because there were wild stretches where they looked unbelievable, stretches where they looked awful, stretches in the middle. They had great defensive stretches. Marcus Howard went off in the second half, and then they threw up on their shoes in the final 30 seconds. I think that'll be fascinating to see how they adjust now that there's a game of film playing that team, how Seton Hall adjusts to them. I think it's going to be a great game. The students are back, or no, they're not back for a week. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think they're back until the 17th.
That's too bad. But all right, well, hopefully there's a decent crowd that shows up because they'll need every ounce of support they can get on that one because I think it's going to be a very tough game that they absolutely can win and, as we've eloquently laid out, need to win.
How many times do you think Angel Delgado dunks on Luke Fisher in this game?
I don't know about dunks, but elbow, like spin and pin, Chris Webber style, over-unders 4.5, and he pounding the over. Oh, just exciting to see him in the post do work.
Get excited.
It's exciting to see a true post player, operate as they should.
Oh, come on, Mike. Come on, Luke deserves better than that. Come on.
Isn't it great when Seton Hall comes to town? I mean, we get to actually watch some basketball when Seton Hall comes to town.
It is. It goes to show the fickle nature of sports from our time when we were at Marquette a million years ago. I mean, when Bobby Gonzalez was coaching Seton Hall, they were an absolute dumpster fire. I mean, they were horrifically bad, and now they look like a competent basketball team. It goes to, I mean, nothing's forever.
Well, they won the Big East championship last year.
The tournament, 2 years ago, right?
Was that 2 years ago?
2 seasons ago, wasn't? Oh, did Seton Hall win?
No, I think it was.
Year?
We were in Arizona.
Oh, that's right. Seton Hall won the Big. Yeah, you're right. Big East tournament. Yeah.
Sports.
They're a competent basketball team. It just goes to show nothing lasts forever.
What do we have to do to be competent?
It's a great question.
That's another show.
Yeah. We'll get to that in the next show.
Prevent the opposing team from putting the ball in the basket at a rate above 50%. That's a problem.
Just trying to get our Marquette grade from a check to a check plus here. That's all I'm hoping for.
I would kill for a check plus.
That was my goal in kindergarten.
Clearly, this team, and let's close it up with this, fellas. I think clearly this team has offensive firepower. I think we've exhibited that.
Absolutely.
Obviously, from the start of the podcast, and we've been talking about it almost from game one this season, this team lacks defensive whatever you want to call it, whether it's intensity, whether it's scheme, whether it's individual
Cajones,
individual matchups. You know, Brian, earlier you said that defense is effort, and I don't disagree with that. They called me the junkyard dog in 5th grade basketball. I still wear that proudly.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, my God.
I fouled out of a game once, and my mom told me Bobby Knight would be proud. And I was like, oh, yeah.
I can't decide what's more remarkable. Mike citing 5th grade basketball or that he was called the junkyard dog. Oh,
yep.
My God.
Yes, it's defensive effort. Yes, it's defensive intensity. But that's not the only thing, and I think this team needs to do some soul-searching, coaches included, because what they've done to this point in the season hasn't worked. When you have returning players, seniors with a lot of experience, who still can't execute as well as it needs to be executed, that's a problem. It's on everybody in this program what the defense looks like right now. We can't parse it out to any one group. It's on everyone, and that needs to be the focus of this team going forward. The offense is going to come. You know, Caden Reinhardt's going to get his shots. He'll have his good nights, his bad nights. Marcus Howard the same. I think Cheatham is going to get his head right eventually. It's really the defensive end. If we can improve marginally on the defensive side of the ball, I think these 50-50 games, what I call 50-50 games, immediately become 60-40 games for us. Just a little bit more, and we're in a much better place.
And I think something that was obvious was that with Juwan in foul trouble, we really didn't have a catalyst at all on the defensive end. I mean, when he's out there, even though we're not very big, he's still able to make some plays and, you know, turn that defense into offense. And with him on the bench for much of the first half and still in foul trouble in the second half, he wasn't able to be really himself, and neutralized by Villanova's good passing and instincts anyway. But I think that he's actually emerged as someone that we can't have in foul trouble more so than Luke.
Yeah, I agree. Good point.
Tune in on Wednesday, people. Lucas Merriweather Fisher, I think, is going to give us his best performance of the season. I think reading his quotes, I think he's recognized what happened. I think I think he's going to be motivated going up against Delgado. And I think from an effort standpoint and an output standpoint, we're going to see the best from Luke Fisher on Wednesday.
I hope you're right. It shouldn't take a 30-point drubbing to make that happen, but I hope you're right.
What are you talking about? We lost by 12. We were right there.
Oh, yeah, almost covered the spread there. Awesome.
Right there.
You know, one other thing that I just wanted to add in there while we're still on this game, there were some super ticky-tacky bullshit calls against Marquette in the early going. And no, we didn't lose because of the referees. I'm not saying that.
Oh, we totally lost because of the referees. We got screwed!
I I really like the way that Wojo responded emotionally when Marcus went up for a layup and it seemed like clearly got fouled for and one and they didn't call it. Wojo was hot.
Yep.
And rightfully so. But I like that he's out there protecting his guys first and foremost in situations like that where when you're mauled going to the hoop, when you're 5'8", you should get a call like that. So good for Wojo standing up for his guy.
Absolutely. We've got an important game coming up at home against Seton Hall, a game we should be able to handle, but certainly tune in for that one. It's definitely going to be one of the better ones of the season, and look for a bounce-back performance from Marquette.
Look for a bounce-back performance. You don't have to worry about bounce-back pods, though. We're always on our game here.
Yep, and since I'm wrong about every prediction, I'm going to say that...
Every prediction! I mean, you are the worst predictor.
I'm going to say that we lose this game because I want to be wrong again. It feels so good to be wrong.
Brian?
I'll take a Marquette W by 3 points.
I'm going to take a Marquette W too. I think it's around the 3 to 4 point range. I think we do just enough. I think at some point this season, this team's going to figure out how to win a close game. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today at the Real Chili Podcast. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. We'll talk to you soon.